Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on the 24th of May. My name is Matt Seebeck. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Parking Authority, and we're convening our regular monthly meeting at this time. As we begin, just the basic role present are Mr. Fulham, Mr. Ailey, myself, which constitutes a quorum. If there's anyone available for public comment, we limit public comment to 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone in waiting?
There is, but they are not raising. Mr. Feldblum, would you like to speak? It does not appear so.
Okay. With that, then we'll move to discussion and action related to the minutes from our prior meeting of April 26, 2023. Were there any changes, modifications, omissions from the minutes which were publicly available, posted on the city's website? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion regarding the minutes? All in favor of adopting the minutes as submitted, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. And we can move on to our next agenda item, which is, I believe, the operating report.
If you, Matt, if I may, if you want to take a couple of out of order, that way we can hold the financial report and operating report for Eric when he arrives. I think I could give a brief update to 4A and 4B and I could do 6C, but I think those Eric might want to be available for the other ones.
With the consent of the other commissioners here online, I'd accept Jim's recommendation here.
Sure.
Judd, Peter?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move to 4A and B with Jim.
All right, so these are quick ones. So we've gotten the 3 quotes in for the Haviland deck options. And we are reviewing those and I'll send notification out when we just make sure that the 3 proposals meet all the requirements and go through with what would be the low bid recommendation. For clarification, this is the improvements to the walkway. It's been pitted through the years, so we want to improve that walkway to Washington, as well as enter a staircase that you would be able to go directly right up or down. So you can come there and go down to the lower level for those with monthly permits, or you can take the staircase, go up instead of the staircase now, which is to the left, and you have to walk by the dumpsters in order to get there. Probably not the most attractive use of that space. So we're looking at those enhancements, and then the front arch that's there for those repairs as well. So those will wrap up relatively soon in that review, but they are all in. Regarding the Yankee Doodle Garage facade enhancement, we have met with the so we have two, THA has been tasked with the developing the construction plans, while simultaneously we entered into agreement with the consultant who has been doing our conditions assessment. So we haven't had a conditions assessment done in several years. I wanted to do the conditions assessment prior to the facade improvements to make sure that we weren't going to have to do anything, and it was good. We are we'll have to do some level of improvements of repairs it's been several years since I think concrete repairs were done, and outside structures were just required on a regular basis. So the fact we saw it now before the other improvements is great. We will put the bid out and get the bids back to understand what the costs would be for that. And then so that will be the larger one, and we have looked at some of our, as we've been working at some of our reserve, keeping some of our reserve, but also we put money aside into the capital repairs every year, so we would be looking for that. But more on that as we get that bid out and understand what the costs, the actual construction costs will be. So this will remain on here, but I think it's just, I understand the, why we didn't do the conditions assessment, for a while because of COVID and the reduction of revenue, but it's just, reinforces the need to maintain structures that are, out in the elements. So we will, we'll work with identifying those to get through them. So that should be something that we'll keep on board. I think one of the other things that we are looking to do, the good thing about this is, the cutting of the ribs, we would look to incorporate into, instead of the facade improvements, making sure that, we're already going to have a concrete contractor on board, someone, specializes in this type of material. We're going to add, modify the bid and include that portion of the cutting of the ribs with that contract as well, because we think that's where we're going to see the best value, the best cost coming from. They won't have to, whoever's doing the aesthetic improvements won't have to outsource the contract for concrete to someone else. So we think that we'll get better value with that regardless. So those are those two updates.
Just a quick question. Does that have anything to do with or the inside lighting of the garage?
So we are looking for so there's two things we were looking at: the inside lighting for the garage. It was up so the prior to my arrival, we did transition this to LED. We are looking for enhancements to the lighting on the first level, really recognizing that that's the first impression, last impression, and improving that experience. We have so the THA, the aesthetic contractor, has sent some sample lights that we are going to plug in, install, and see how those. So what that would be, Peter, would be the first level, highlighting the entrance and exits, making those, typically most garages, those are where the points where you have the brightest light at the entrance. And then we're also looking for the stairwells, because I think the stairwell, I think we did a minor replacement on the stairwells, but I think it's not the most aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, bright is
good. Other concerns about it?
No, I was just, they were kind of there doing work, and I just didn't know if that was being looked at a little bit. It's just brighter is good. There's new lighting and stuff. So just asking.
Yeah, no. So I think in two things, what we were doing, looking for additional lighting that's going to occur on the first level. And then we were, under the cage, you could see, just again, being out in the elements, that the plastic has just gotten dirty. So it would also include all of the other covers throughout the rest of the garage to be clean. So I think you'll see an increase in brightness just when we do that as well.
That's great.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks, Jim. So our chairman is here, and so Mr. Chairman, we've closed public comment. We closed the minutes, and we bypassed the financial operating report until you logged in, and we've completed item 4, and we can revert as you need. And I'll leave it to you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. My apologies, everybody. Just literally running. So I think that's a good idea. If we could just go back to item 3 on the financials and let's cover that.
Let me stop sharing so that you can take the screen. Okay. Can I just ask one question? I just, and I apologize, Chairman. I just see Vanessa at the conference table, and I know that she's probably had a very long day. Is there any way that we could take Vanessa out of order? If Vanessa, if you're so inclined to want to come out of order.
I don't see any problem with that.
Until very late, if you- but I appreciate, of course, guys, whatever it is for you, thank you.
Unless somebody disagrees, I think that's fine. So
Okay.
Vanessa, please.
Yes, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come in front of the Parking Authority Board. I know it has been a while that I haven't been. I used to attend every monthly meeting, but now I haven't been here for a while. And I understand that there are some questions and concerns now. The walk bridge is back into construction. So I have invited with me Eric Feldman. He is the engineer from DOT. And we put a presentation together that Eric will gonna run through. And pretty much the idea of the presentation is to focus on the right-of-ways that the state of Connecticut has been taking in regards to the walk bridge program. We're gonna call it program because when Eric goes through the slides, you're gonna understand why it has called program, because there's a lot of projects associated to it. So the idea is to give you guys an overview of all the right-of-ways, and then we're gonna focus on the ones that really reflect on the parking authority. So after that, I'm happy to answer any questions. So I think that it's easier, if you guys don't mind, that Eric does the whole presentation first, and then we can take the questions at the end, and we're happy to go back to specific slides. I think that you guys are gonna have a better understanding if we go through everything. Is that good?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Eric, if you don't mind, take the lead, introduce yourself. Thank you so much for coming.
No problem. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for having me. My name is Eric Feldman, I'm Connecticut Department of Transportation. I'm one of the project engineers that's on the walk bridge. I actually, if you remember, John Hannafin, him and I started this project in 2014 when it was declared emergency deck. So I have a lot of, background and history of what went on from the beginning. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick overview if there's anyone new or not familiar with the project. And then we'll go in the overall rights of way, and then we'll start focusing, as Vanessa said, on some of the city property right of way acquisitions. And then I can answer any questions. And if I can't answer them today, I'll get back to you on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the related project updates, overview of the right of way actions, and then review some of the city acquisitions. So what this is, as Vanessa said, this is a program. Some of the work has already been completed. I've been working on since 2018, I believe we started construction, and the project will be going on projected to end 2029. So as you can see, I'm going to go through, I'll point to the colors, kind of give you a rough idea of what it is. This is a project in green, the Danbury Branch Dockyard. This is a project that has started and is going to be ending very shortly. We upgraded the Danbury line, the dockyard, electrified it. And the purpose of this is this project had to get done prior to the walk bridge. So trains that are going to change directions, they usually change on the bridge, Danbury line, and change direction and go back to New York. Another project that was on earlier is, I'm trying to see if it's on here. It's kind of off the screen because it's blocking. It's right over here. And this is CP 243, another project that's coming to an end. And the reason why this job had to get built before was this introduced switches, an interlocking system. So when we have a 2-track outage, the trains are allowed to change tracks to keep the schedule and avoid other trains. So those were the two major projects that we started off prior. There's a couple other smaller projects. The East Avenue Advanced Utility Project is under construction right now. And then what we have is basically different parts of the rest of the Walk Bridge program. The next project that's going to be starting is in the light, it's basically, it's hard, it's a bunch of colors, but it's basically starting from here where the old marina was, and it's going to go all the way to the East Ave station, which is considered package F. Construction is hoped to start in August. If everything goes well, that is 4-point bridge replacement, Osborne replacement, East Ave station. Strawberry Hill will be added to it, which is over here, and also, actually, no, this won't be added. And a small portion of East Ave, the lowering of the road for the widening of the bridge. Also, part of that over in this area is wall 427. It's a wall behind all the properties on Winfield in really bad shape. We'll be replacing that at some time when there's the 2-track outage. The Walk Bridge is going to be of many packages. Package A is actually under construction. We had the groundbreaking ceremony last week. And basically that's going to be doing a lot of in-water work, substructure underwater, building the trestles, and start getting the properties ready like Manresa Island for the storage. Well, actually, no, that is package G. That would be starting soon also. That's just to get the Manresa ready and doing some ordering so we could get the materials that take a long lead time. And subsequent, at the same time, the red is the East Ave project that has been in the works for a long time, I believe for you guys, probably over 20 years. So the first portion we're going to put out the bid is the beautification of around the cemetery. We added that. The city asked if we could add that to the project, and we agreed. And so we're going to be putting sidewalks and fixing the roadway around the cemetery area. And hopefully that construction would start in next year, next spring. So I could get. So I kind of just went over that without showing the schedule, but I wanted you to see the pictures, even though we do have the schedule here. If you read the slide, you could kind of see more of the detail when the lift spans will be going in and being built, the abutment spans, the lift tower structures, right? We're going to build the lift towers, and then the lift spans will get floated in. The micro tunneling that's going under the river. This is our micro tunneling. That is for Metro North. This is not the Eversource tunneling. They're doing their own, as you I'm sure are aware of that. So this is a quick schedule of the project, and the city is involved with everything and gets notified of anything that happens. So what what Vanessa did ask me to come to is come talk about right-of-way acquisitions and kind of give your team, your board, an overview of what took place and how much property we took. We have 2 slides. This is not all the properties, but as you can see, there's quite a bit of properties. They're numbered. Just to give you an idea where we are, number 1 right here in red is the marina. Here's a table. Reds were total acquisitions. Purples are temporary construction easements, and light purple is a partial fee and take and all that, and green was the existing properties. So we have many city properties on here for mitigation of the wetlands that we have to do. This was, obviously city property. We have 31 and the aquarium, which everyone is well aware because the IMAX and the other rehabs have already been done. And whoops, sorry about that. And here's some more properties. This is in the East Ave area on Winfield, all the construction easements that we need to build that wall and to do the 2 tracks. This was bought a long time ago before. This is with the Pooch Hotel, East Ave, where we bought the TDD house. If you know, that is coming down, so we could realign the driveway, and a signal will be going there. This is a snippet because it won't fit on the map. This is Manresa Island. This is Norton Place by Strawberry Hill. And this was already done. And a lot of these acquisitions this one's already been given back. This was to the town of Westport to do some work for the signaling under the river. So that's a quick overview of all the acquisitions, and if you have questions, we could go back into them later. But the city, I wanted to focus on some of the properties for the city of Norwalk. So here's a list of all the city of Norwalk properties. We acquired them. What type of easement we did or take, and the cost that the state has paid the city of Norwalk. 12A, 12 all the way through 12C was the water treatment plant. 21 is the aquarium. As you know, we built the IMAX and other seal enclosure and everything like that. 21A is we ended up adding partial to easement to build the bridge that wasn't in the original mapping, and I could go over that. 25, off the top of my head, I'm having, it was a small one. I think that was to build Ann Street Bridge, if I remember correctly. 31, which is probably the one that you're most interested in. That was the aquarium parking that is actually going on right now to demo the IMAX, and we'll get more in depth on that. City of Norwalk, Oyster Shell Park is for the mitigation. Science Road, it was this property act was to get into our own property. Could you hear me? There's a lot of rain going on. Do I need to move?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. 46, that's the mitigation by Liberty Square. And we'll touch on Liberty Square for you. I know you guys have a lot of questions going on with Liberty Square. We did get a letter also, so I don't want to ignore that. And then the last one was a few parking spaces at the train station. All right, so those are the acquisitions. Now I'll go into some that might interest you, and we could talk about the maps. So the Maritime Aquarium, this was done a long time ago. This is on the north side of the bridge. Our main easement is to get behind the aquarium for delivery. We'll have a crane here. As you know, we took down the tent. We built the enclosure for the seal because we're going to be close to them. So we didn't want to disturb the seals. And a lot of the construction for the bridge itself would be happening behind the aquarium. And then this is the other side. I highlighted 2 lines because I felt like they would interest you. This first line is basically from here where I'm pointing to the north to the bridge. That's a maintain and construct bridge. So that's a permanent easement where I know you guys are wanting to do a park and, beautify that area. I believe the department has dedicated a certain amount of money for that. And this is just area that you can't build a permanent structure. It does move. We actually built it out. You'll see in the next map, but that's what this line is for. This line is a temporary construction easement. This is during the line we took to the edge of the parking. And this is to build the bridge. As you know, there's going to be a large crane mat and a large crane that will be built in place to build most of the bridge. And I want to make sure that you guys are aware that during construction of the walk bridge, we will not be impeding on any of your traffic, any of your parking. Now, in some cases, the contractor is going to need some of the parking if something gets delivered or built. We got to build the crane. We got to disassemble the crane. And in extremely high winds, the crane has to come down. And the only way or place it could come down is probably across the parking lot. So in those cases, we came up with an agreement with the city of Norwalk. We didn't want to do an easement and take away your parking. If we did an easement through the whole parking, then we would just take your parking whether we need it or not. And we didn't want to do that. So what was agreed upon is when the contractor needs to take spaces for any reason, you would first be notified. I think in our contract, it has to be within 48 hours. Hopefully with the weather forecast, they'll know when high winds are coming, and that they'll pay the city per parking spot for the length of time that we need it, so you won't have less revenue on those spots during that time. Now, the reason why we did this, it could be a day, it could be 4 hours, it could be 2 weeks. The only time it's going to be long, a week to 2 weeks, would be when we build the crane and disassemble the crane, that we would need to take parking for a couple weeks, but you will be paid for that. So I wanted everyone to be aware that that is the case in these spots.
Eric, can I ask you a question before we move
Sure.
on? Currently with the deconstruction of the IMAX theater, the project has taken about a third of the parking spaces, and we were told that that wasn't a factor. Is the contractor supposed to be paying for that space?
No, we paid the city already for that space, for all those parking spaces. We
Okay.
paid, I could go back, that
There
is,
was the construction easement for that, Jim.
we paid $46,600 for that construction easement. And it's about, I think it was about a 3-month expectation.
Okay, but and then after that, it returns then, or no?
Yes, it opens back up. It's all yours again.
So once it opens back up, if somebody needs it, then they pay? Is that what you're
They
saying?
pay per spot, per time frame. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep. So anytime they come after that easement is done, you will get paid, I'm gonna say per diem. You'll get paid based on the length of time and how many spots they need.
okay,
And in our contract, they have to notify you in advance for all parking, not just this parking. Any city paid parking that needs to be closed, they're supposed to notify you and they'll reimburse you for those spots. So,
okay,
and I'm bringing that up because if we close North Water, we are not closing the whole North Water, but those couple spots that are near the bridge in front of the Think Mac or the Mac store.
yep,
If parking cannot be done, you'll be reimbursed for those parking spots too.
okay,
All right, I'm gonna go back now. And then what this map is remember I said the maintain a construction easement, the permanent easement. It got moved out about 40 more feet. We've seen your plans. It doesn't really affect what you guys want to do here. It's just, we need access to the bridge and this is the rails right away said they would need for anything because we're doing the underground communication tunneling. And what happened was originally we had the line right here, but the pits for that are right here, which is a manhole, large manhole covers. So we had to extend the permanent easement here so we could get into our manhole covers. So that was the reason why the line went from here to here, was because the placement of the large, they're not really manhole covers, they're probably rectangular and very big, but for access. But based on what you guys want to do here, it won't impede on that. Okay, this is the one you were just talking about. This is the parking that was taken away right now. This is only a temporary easement. It was projected, I don't know what they valued it at. Usually they throw an extra month on there just in case, but it's probably valued at 3 to 4 months. As you see, I think they've been out there for what, a month and a half. The hard part seems like it's over because they couldn't drop a brick in the water based on permitting, right? That's why they picked one brick at a time, because the permits do not allow them to have any debris fall into the river. Now that brick is gone, the steel obviously will go pretty easily, and then they'll do by the roadway. You'll probably close the roadway at some part there, so we'll talk. I got to make sure if they do close that parking, we'll let construction know that the contractor will need to reimburse the city on those spots, which I believe are right about here. All right, so I just left this one in here. This is Oyster Shell Park. This is the path. We just have a easement. This is the mitigation wetlands part of here. This is where we're spraying and where we're rebuilding, so we need an easement to get to them. I think we're responsible up to 5 years to spray and maintain. The contractor is responsible up to 5 years to maintain these wetlands. This was already presented to the Park and Rec Department in 2019. When we're spraying, the path will be closed so people are not walking through, toxic material, chemicals. And this is a 3-part just because it's so large. And the reason why I want to show this, I don't think this is paid parking, but we are closing some parking in the park. This work is getting done this year, this season. Main construction of the wetlands should be beginning soon. So this easement will be going into effect, but it's only a 1-season easement. It was presented in 2019 to the Park and Rec Department. Construction is going to work with Vanessa to present this again, because I believe you have some new people on that board, because the park does close, the playground area does close, and I'm assuming there's gonna be a lot of questions on that, but the Office of Construction is gonna handle that with Vanessa. And then the third map is just more, just access through the park so we could get to other mitigation sites. I left this here, it doesn't affect Liberty Square people, but I know there's a lot of talk about Liberty Square, and after this, I have a map of probably what's concerning. But this is a wetland mitigation that we're gonna be doing next to Liberty Square. It was a City of Norwalk property, there was multiple properties here. One piece of it was city, and obviously here you could see that it was state, and it continues like a horseshoe, but we didn't, obviously, it was our property. I believe the next map is, okay, good. So I zoomed in here because here's Liberty Square, here's all the parking and all the businesses. I know you have some concerns from businesses. And the reason why you're getting maybe some more concerns is, as part of this, there's a fence on our property, on the DOT property, because we bought all this. The marina, this was the two houses, it was I think his name was Robert Fries, and the Penna property. Recently, a fence went along the property. There's gonna be a gate going across Goldstein Place. We're moving the fire hydrant on this side of the gate for the fire marshal. And here, so the property that is being blocked was never part of the Liberty Square property. We made sure our fence line, and I'm gonna go to the next page. We made sure our fence line stayed within the right of way. This is Liberty Square in front. This is our fence line behind within the right of way. Unfortunately, a lot of the businesses in Liberty Square was using this property, whether it was the marina or Penna's property, as parking for themselves or putting a dumpster back there. And they were asked to move everything. I forget the name of the company, but the plastics company does have parking. His property did go back here. You could see he was left with wherever his parking was. The good thing is we fixed the drainages area. I don't know if you're familiar, but this used to flood. When we bought the property, it was flooded. Anytime it rained, it completely flooded. So which will help out this business owner here. But that's what's happening. What is going to happen is we're putting a temporary traffic signal across the street so people could exit out of Liberty Square, because we have the trucks that are going to be going in and out, and to make it safe, we're putting a traffic signal. I believe that was a request of the city to have that traffic signal there.
Eric, let me just add a few more to this slide, if you don't
Yep.
mind. I want to give this board a little bit of a history on that. So I just want to, I know that some of you wasn't part of the board when the parking authority actually took over Liberty Square. What happened was that before, this was just a parking lot, and the parking authority really didn't enforce anything there. So many years ago, but there was a lot of complaints of illicit things that were happening in that parking lot. And that's why the parking authority ended up really maintaining and overseeing that lot, so we could not only enforce, but also do some improvements to make it safer. And that's what we did. So there was a lot of work that we did at the front of the parking lot with parking authority capital money, probably like 5-6 years ago. When DOT came to propose that they ended up buying those sites in the back, one of their first ideas was actually to do not make the Goldstein Place Road all the way up to the tracks. And the city really fought a lot on that because we still want to, in the future, if we ended up having the rights of that parcel, or if that parcel get moved to a different private owner, we want to make sure that that road is there and will be better developed. So I just want to let you guys know that there was a lot of negotiation between the city and DOT, and they accommodate us a lot to be able to have this map the way that you guys are seeing. So that was really the hydrant had to be moved so we could also keep all those buildings safe, and was one of the requirements. And also the trail that wraps up under that bridge now goes out and will meet the sidewalk up to the end of Liberty Square. That also wasn't part of the original part of this agreement. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a feedback. Some of the parking issues that we're hearing about, what is happening is that although DOT really owned this property for many years now, we never really enforced, they never put the gate as a courtesy because they know that those people were using it. But now with the construction imminent, they have to limit that access. But where that parking was happening was not really part of our parcel or our the city anymore. Was already, the state was closing their eyes for the parking that was happening there.
Yep.
So I just want to add that to the Liberty Square. Go ahead.
Yep, thank you. And as Vanessa said, one of the, a big thing was we extended the walking and bike trail to go under the bridge. It's gonna, if you can see my mouse, it's gonna go along the bridge and then it will connect to Goldstein Place down to, and then connecting the trail, which I believe is on Washington Street, and then goes to Route 136. So that's that, and I believe there is one more map, just so you know, this was paid for. I don't remember the value. We could go back to that slide, but this is your South Norwalk Station. We're gonna be, you guys actually own the road into the station. So we have an easement into the roadway, even though it's public access. I learned something new. We still got to pay for an easement there. And then they need to get onto the side of the tracks. So the best place was, let's, block off these parkings so they could not impede the rest of the parcel and just get onto the tracks. Or, there's a siding here that there's a maintenance area there. So that was the easement that was done for South Norwalk. And I believe that is it. And I could answer whatever questions, hopefully could answer whatever questions you may have. And I could go back to whatever slide you would like me to go back
So
to.
Eric, let me just also tell the board on how this easement process works, so then you guys are familiar, because this is really city property, so the process that we had to do was all the easements have to get approved by common council. So it went, most of them, I would say all of them actually went through the Public Works Committee and also for approval of common council. And then for all the time that it was an easement, our legal gets involved, and there is another appraisal that is done by the city. Because the state comes to us with an offer, if it is a construction easement, temporary easement, if it is a take, and then they come with a proposal already with a cost associated to it. So what we do is, first we have to agree on the lines, and Eric knows I always push back. We just have this on the another little stretch that they need to get next to the wastewater treatment plant, that we have to move a little bit the line so the trucks can make a turn. But after we agree on that is when they've added the property and come up with an offer to us. So we do not accept the offer without really checking with our own appraisal. So we hire someone, there's a third party that does an appraisal for those properties. And after that, and depending on what they agree or disagree with, and we come into an agreement, is that the legal brings to in front of the Public Works Committee for approval, and that goes in front of the Common Council. I just want to highlight that when was the Liberty Square and also everything related to the North Water, we present that to the North Parking Authority. But as you go back to those tables, you can see that happened 3, 4, 6 years ago. That's why some of you wasn't not around and didn't know everything that happened before. But you can see that, and this is really the file status, but doesn't mean that we start talking on that day. Some of those easements, we had a lot of interaction before that was really getting to file status. So we have a lot of them that went through that. So I just want to let you guys know that we have been working, I've been working with Eric 7 years on this project, and there is a lot of back and forth before we could agree on something. So I know that it's new for you guys, what is going on. And I can say that from the city side, we always try to look at every single aspect on who's going to be affected by those easements. So, and that's why on the North Quarter lot, well, we decided that probably the best approach was to only give them a construction temporary easement while the IMAX is being really demolished. And after that, get the, whatever will be the market rate per space as we do with everything else. Because it would be very hard to get a true value of the spaces that will be blocked, because it's not sure how much time and how many spaces that will be used. So trying to be fair to both parties, we agree on paying that after. So that money, just to let you guys know, that goes to parking authority, because you guys are gonna receive that money. All this money comes to the city as in our general fund, but every unit closure of a parking space will go through the parking authority. And how we're gonna control that? Under the Public Works and Engineering, we issue encroachment permits, as you guys are aware. So for instance, when someone comes and gonna close something on the street that affects parking, one thing that we do, we send it back to LAS and we say, okay, now these spaces will need to be blocked, go talk to LAS, they're gonna charge you accordingly, and then there is an account set up. I just wanna add that in the past, when we're doing N Street, we had that situation already in place, particularly with some spaces inside the Maritime Garage as well. And that's, and at the time, the contractor that was Shingle Middlesex, they had an account with LAS, and they went there and paid for the spaces that they needed on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, whatever they negotiate. So I just want to clarify about this financial aspect of it and how we got to this. So thank you, Eric. I think that was very good. I think that you cover a lot, and I appreciate your time on putting all these graphics together.
No problem.
So I don't know if you guys have any questions. Again, we are here to clarify anything that you guys have, listen to your concerns. So please let us know what we can do.
Great, thank you, Vanessa. This is terrific. And Vanessa, just so you know, it's very much different than some of the information we were getting before this, particularly related to the Water Street lot. It does raise some questions, though, that we may not need to dive into too deeply here, which is it sounds like the city has received money for spaces that were taken out of commission, and for us, that's lost revenue. So we've not been given a heads up that there's money anywhere to roll into our operations to compensate for that lost revenue. So Jim, I don't know how to follow up on that, but it sounds like there are some things to follow up on and see, exactly how the flow of these, I'll call them reimbursements, are going to work. Because Vanessa, as you can imagine, one of our primary concerns is lost revenue, and when we have lost revenue on top of some of the other parts of the city where we're losing spaces and potentially losing an entire parking lot, these few dollars become really important. So I'd be interested to know moving forward how, as you mentioned, the Common Council, it seems to me that since we're the ones directly impacted, that we should be involved in those discussions when they occur, if they're still occurring, and help them understand that, when they see a line item for like the registered value for 31A at $46,000, when they see that, that's not money for, quote, the city. In my mind, it's money for the parking authority, obviously, as its function within the city. So I think, all of this has come together really well. And personally, I go way back with this project too, being on the design committee for the bridge itself, even at the very beginning. So it's good to see all of the work that you guys have put in, Vanessa on your side and Eric on your side also, because this is a massive project and there's so many good things that are going to come out of it. not only for the city as a whole, but for, for South and East Norwalk, for that matter. But I think the process of if LAS is going to be notified that spaces are going to go offline, and then my question is, who takes it from there? It sounds like we might be adding some tracking or accounting or something onto LAS's plate, which means that we then would need to perhaps add some reporting to our monthly meeting. So we as a board understand, what's happening. But this, for me, this was terrific, and it conveyed a lot of really valuable information. So thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Eric. And if anybody else has anything to add or questions, please, jump in.
So Eric, let me just add one thing. I'm happy to work with Les on trying to establish the best way on how we can kind of account for this money. Meaning not the accounting itself, but kind of what will be the system that will be easier for you guys to implement, because I'm probably going to be, or my department will be the one that will be notified about those closures, and then maybe how we're going to kind of pass that along. So I'm happy to work with Jim. Jim and I can kind of sit down and come up with a plan, and then we are about to have a meeting with all the construction happening, and then again we can just set up what will be the protocol, and then we can ask the construction team to follow. I don't think it will be an issue.
Okay, and then
Most
just
of
sort
it
of
is already in place, so you guys know, because we do that on a daily basis with all the construction that happens on the right of way. So there is already a system in place. So I don't think that we really need to reinvent the wheel, because again, let's say if the gas company needs to do some work in a certain street and they are closing parking spaces, you guys are receiving the revenue. And there is a total coordination between DPW permits with LAS. So I don't think that and that works. So that's why I don't think there is any issues. If sometimes the good thing is that when the enforcement team goes to a certain area and they see that there is a space that is blocked, they call us right away. And then we see, oh, maybe someone is working without a permit, that we go there and then we find them and shut them off. Or we know that, okay, you guys have to go back and pay. You haven't paid for that. So I just want to let you know that there is already a system in place, but we can, of course, talk through and see if it can even be better. And maybe you guys internally kind of have the metrics for that separately, so you have an idea about what is going on.
Yeah, because it seems like the objective of what you've laid the groundwork for is for us to have an uninterruption, to have no interruption in our revenue. And so it'll take some effort to have that, to not have that interruption, like you were just saying, there's, maybe some errant parking that occurs. So that additional process of monitoring that, I appreciate you, being willing to work with LAS to help figure that out, because and Eric, so far there haven't been enormous concentrations of people working around even the demolition that's going on seems to be done very well contained, and I don't see contractors, driving the streets looking for places to park, and so I don't know if it will come to that, if there will be large concentrations of people reporting for work, directly here, but making use of some of our other facilities for them when it does happen, if that can be projected out, so we can understand if we need to, make those arrangements.
I could touch on that a little bit. The contractor is responsible, because you will start getting a lot more activity soon. The contractor is responsible to find their own parking for their own employees on any private land. If they want to work with the city and get an arrangement to build more city, if you guys have available parking somewhere and to build more revenue, I guess that would be up to you and the contractor, but the contractor can't just park on the street or park in the parking garage and take everyone else's parking. That's not allowed unless they made arrangements with the city. Otherwise, they're supposed to find their own private land to do the parking for their contractors. Manafort, who's doing the building, the demo, is different, right? It's a lot less, and they're not the contractor for the actual building of the walk bridge. So
Right.
that's how that's handled.
Because we had similar discussions, and Matt, you'll be able to speak to this, but before the mall was under construction, there was similar conversations about where do people park, and so there's a way to figure it out, and
Yep.
and it will be figured out. I'm just at whatever point it makes sense to start figuring it out, I guess, is
Yeah,
have a heads up to
I agree.
to know. Which you guys are certainly, you seem certainly really good at foreseeing what's around the corner. So that's good.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think to echo that, Eric, I think we would just like to, partner a little bit earlier with, regards to parking, because I do think we do have a little bit of a concern with the Maritime Garage. I am hearing that the state will continue free museums again this summer. And I think they're not doing all, but they're doing some of the major ones, and the Maritime is going to be included in that. So when we saw that last time, it does bring a lot of extra people into the Maritime Aquarium,
Yep.
which subsequently brings a lot of extra people into the garage.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that, the Maritime is pretty important to us in the city. And certainly us as a parking authority. So we want to make sure those spaces remain accessible for patrons. And if we could work with you on acquiring additional spaces, other places, whether they're parking authority lots or maybe some other private entities that we could point you to. So we make sure that those spaces remain open for us.
Yes, yeah, that would be, and that was our point. We didn't want them all parking in that parking garage and taking away from the businesses and the restaurants and the aquarium for sure.
Yeah, I think we just want to make sure that this is seen as positive as can be.
Us too, yep.
So if Eric, would you mind just there was a lot of information you gave us. So could you just let's go through the slides quickly, and if anybody has anything to ask about or comment on, we'll give them the opportunity to refresh their minds with what they saw. So everybody just chime in. Otherwise, just take a few seconds on each slide and move forward.
All right.
Also, while he's going through, I just want to let you guys know that for this year, most of the work that will get done, it is happening more to fall, where there will be more disruption. So now during the summer, besides the final demolition of the IMAX, there will not be so many major construction, because some of the work that they can do on the water is limited by a certain time of the year. So what helped us a little bit for this year, not the following one, when we're in full construction of the bridge, we cannot say that, but some of the work that is happening, particularly some of the mitigation that we saw, it is limited to a certain time of the year. What kind of is a little bit better, because will take us out of the heaviest, busy summer season around the aquarium.
Yeah, some of the first things that will happen, mitigation. We'll be building the new vessel relocations for when work is done near the bridge, and the vessels won't be able to park in front of the parking lot, this area down here. That will be getting done earlier. And a lot of the in-water work, like Vanessa said, is basically for winter time. And just so you know, and I'm sure you know, because we did this through the whole program, is construction, there won't be any construction activity going on during your Oyster Festival. We know that's a big thing, or any major events. We have certain major events where the contractor's aware that they can't work. And Oyster Festival is probably the biggest one.
There is the NICE festival that occurs in Oyster Shell Park. A lot of foot traffic along the pathway.
Well, some Eric, just to let you know, we negotiated again in the past what are some of the events that kind of can happen and cannot. So if the areas will be already under construction, then that event cannot happen.
Okay,
So
just, yeah, whatever.
so just you guys know, but on things that are very big, like the Oyster Festival that happens in an area that is really not associated to their work, That event is happening, but we asked them to not do the work because we know how many people that will be attracted. to
Right.
it.
Oh, okay.
I think with the Veterans Park too, you'll be focusing more with Eversource for this coming season, next season, more than us. They're the ones that are gonna be doing more work in the Veterans Park area.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So here's the schedule. Click away.
So while you're doing that, please keep going. On the Liberty Square situation, I think, from my perspective, and Vanessa, you could tell me, but I'm not sure that everyone, all the citizens, not the city or the state. I think the impact of what that land becoming separated was going to do to those folks is probably a little bit of what they're wrestling with. So I guess if there is that kind of impact on any of these other projects, the only reason it involves us is because it's adjacent to the Liberty Square lot. But I think if it seems to me that people might have been caught a little bit off guard, perhaps.
Yeah, Eric, we have internal meeting on Friday to discuss that.
Okay.
in the city to work out a plan.
Okay. Okay, well, good. So a couple more slides, and then it doesn't sound like anybody has any questions.
I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to, answer your questions and clarify and present this. So it's always good to get everyone up to speed and on the same page. So there's no one caught off guard on anything. So I appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
So Eric and Vanessa, just for clarification, like the 46 in 31B, is that revenue intended for the parking authority or no?
Was never, was always.
Okay, but what is it, what outside of what that parameter was? So like when you finish with the deconstruction of the, for the aquarium park parcel, now, when you finish with that is then returned back to the parking authority. If you were to take additional parking spaces besides the crane erection at later dates, then the contractor would be paying for those spaces. But
Yep.
So the contract, and then if you do impact any on-street parking, whether it's North Water Street or anywhere
Anywhere.
else, you pay the parking authority for those spaces as well?
That is true. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And Vanessa, you said your office would receive that money and then disperse it to us, right?
Yes, it is a direct pay to less, because that's
Okay.
how it is. So that's why the city, again, and the reason for that, and what happened is the way that we saw this, and that's how we negotiated. This is really like a construction easement, right? So although it is for a short period of time, it is for kind of really construction that we know that they need that for the whole staging area. From now on, it's not anymore like something that they need to construct, but it will be areas that they may need temporarily. So it's not really qualify as a construction easement, but it will be like, for instance, in case like it's very windy, let's say we're during hurricane season, we know that we're gonna have very windy days. That crane cannot be up. It's part of their safety. The boom has to come down. There is no place to put it down unless if it is the parking lot. But how are we gonna predict that? It's not fair to give them a construction easement of 6-7 years on that lot if most of the time we're not gonna be used. So that's why we ended up agreeing on having, okay, if you need those spaces, you can take it. We're not gonna deny, so we cannot deny. They will have to have it, but they're gonna pay us per day as many spaces, and as long as they take it, we'll just use whatever is the daily fee that we have already.
Okay.
And Rocky, I thought the contractors paid you directly. They go through DPW?
No, what we do is we do a little coordination. They pay directly to LAS. They have an account with LAS. So
Okay.
they go to Water Street and pay them. What happened is that a lot of times they do not know that construction is happening because we're the ones that hold all the encroachment permit. And all your on-street parking is in our right of way. So what happened is that when we issue a permit, part of the term of the permit is that they need to go see LAS and pay the fee. So that's when they are allowed to block a space.
Okay,
Excellent. Well,
well, thank you.
I'm gonna sign off now, but thank you very much again.
Excellent.
Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Eric.
No
Thank
problem,
you.
Vanessa. Take
Yes,
care.
do you have any more questions for me related to the engineering, anything else? I'm happy to answer more
So
questions.
Vanessa, just one question. Are all the permits now in place to finish the walk bridge?
Now they are, I think that they just
Yes.
missed.
Nope, we got them all now.
Oh,
Okay, so
beautiful.
everything is up.
We got the, what was it, the Army, no, the Coast Guard permit came in a week ago.
And
Perfect.
that was the only one that I was gonna say. I think they're still missing the Coast Guard. So
Nope,
okay, they got it.
we did
So
get it.
I'm way behind on the updates, Eric.
Yep, so we're all
Excellent.
good there. All right, thank you very much. Have a
Good
great
night.
night, everyone.
Great, thank you.
Bye-bye.
And do you guys have any more questions for me?
I'm good. If anybody else does, they could jump in, but I think we're good.
Okay, so thank you so much, and I appreciate that you guys let me go first with Eric and move us. Have a good night, everyone.
Vanessa.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so that puts us back into item 3.
Oh, I gotta stop sharing, sorry.
All right, hope everybody's doing well. Interesting presentation. Rocky, we're all set. So for the month of April, we had a good month. Fund balance was favorable to budget. And on the revenue side of it, the parking revenue was off about 2.7% for the month. And that's mainly due to the Maritime Garage. We were expecting a bigger recovery when we created this budget on the transient side. But despite that, year to date, we're still 7% over budget in parking revenue. And compared to last year, we're up almost 5%. On the expense side, for the month, it was down about a little over 2% for the month, and year to date, almost 5% favorable for budget, and compared to last year, it was a fraction of a percent higher. When we can go into the variance report, Rocky. But there wasn't really too much mind blowing to share with you this month as far as the variance report goes. On the violation, on the revenue side, there was only 2 items that we're reporting on the violation revenue. The main comment here is that there were some increased collection efforts and additional notices, were actually sent out over the last few months. Probably been up about over the last few months, about 30% more notices went out, and people were paying them. And when we drilled down into kind of comparison with the budget, like we did the last few months, we were basically the number of tickets was right on budget, but it was the average ticket value that was different. And
Staffy, I just saw Matt has his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see that. I've got my screens covered. Yes.
That's okay. So just two quick questions. One, other revenue was over this past month, and I'm assuming based on last month's report that that's just the excess back rent that was paid. We just recognized it last month.
Yep. That's actually the second line item on variance report.
Okay.
Lease income.
And then I just had one more question about parking violation. So this volume of revenue, is what's reported here actually our take following everyone taking their cuts, and where this is what the revenue is before we drop it down, further. This is after our collection agency is taking their cuts. This is what we get, right?
No, these are gross collections. So when we get down to the expense line items where you see permit violation management, there's expenses in there that get that are the expenses for collection.
Okay, I'll wait until we get there. I just we're just only we do have a 12% overage in that line item, but it's not necessarily proportionate, which is why I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, it not always is, but let me get through this and maybe that'll answer some of your questions.
Sure.
On the violation side, the as far as number of tickets, that was on budget, but it was the average ticket collected was 59% higher than we had budgeted, and that was because a third of it came from late fees. So the actual collected was about, we budgeted about $30.65. The actual was about $48.85, of which 33% or a little over $16 was late fees. It was about $35,000 in late fees, and that really contributed to most of this variance. So on that. So hopefully that answered some of it. And then the other component of the revenue that was up that we're reporting on is the payment that we received from the back rent from Lobster Craft, and that's why other revenue was up. That's from lease income from the railroad station. And then on the expense side, the equipment expense, we talked about this month after month, and that was where we used to charge the vehicles. And since we deferred those costs and are redeploying some of the existing customer service vehicles we have, there was no need to spend anything there. And snow removal, thankfully, there was no snow in April. So nothing mind-blowing for the variance report as far as April goes. Matt, did that answer some of the question?
Yeah, as it relates to the leasing income, yeah.
Yeah, so I think Matt also, I have been working with Laz on really you closely monitoring expenses, really looking at, how we do additional, making sure we're getting the best price on things that we have to buy, making sure that what we're buying is the right time to buy it, to looking at what opportunities we have for savings, understanding that we wanted to make that reinvestment into the facilities. So we also took to look at as we've been talking about the uncollected late fees. So the aging tickets, right? So we talked about an amnesty program, and I think we would look to restart an amnesty program discussion when we have staff to be able to support it, because it is a little time consuming. But we did do an effort of some some effort has been made to increase the past due letters for some of the older accounts that typically we don't get. And we have seen some of those paid, which is why you're seeing the larger uptick we believe the larger uptick in the late fees being some type of response potentially to those. So I think that's a little bit what you're seeing. A little of that is that.
Yeah,
and
totally understand, Jim. I wholly appreciate that. I just do recall there was some back and forth about whether or not, how much the success fee was for a collection agency. So this is really good, and I appreciate it, Sathi. And look, we a mild winter has given us the opportunity for some money there as well. So that's great.
Right. Yes. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Like we're going to get into what that's starting to mean for us, and what I would recommend that we look as a parking authority.
So yeah, on the next page where the full line item P&L is, the highlighted items are the ones we covered in the variance report. The only item of note, in case there is a question, is when you look at building repair and maintenance, that we did add some more to the forecast in expectation of some additional work being done. It's in the leak over at the coffee shop, or on the coffee shop roof, the stairs at the State Street side of railroad station, clock tower repair, and some concrete facade repairs that may need to be done. I think that's what Jim wanted to maybe talk a little bit more.
Well, I didn't get what the last said, Staffy. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, just that we had increased the building repair and maintenance forecast.
Yeah, all right. So I thought you were teeing me up for that, and I couldn't hear it at the end. So yes, we're looking for a little bit of that. One of the things that so increase the repair and maintenance by moving something around for a couple of things. I think when we for the coffee shop in particular. I did get a phone call from the leasing agent today. She does have the lease. It's been through our legal department, been through her legal department, back to our legal department. I think we're at a point in time we're just going to do the final walkthrough, and in preparation for that, you'll recall that we did have a we did have a leak in the coffee shop. We looked for that repair, but it apparently was more than just the one. Where the leak is, we can't repair it. It does require Capasso. They're going to need to set scaffolding up to the outside of the building. So we'll need to get that. I think we're looking at the $15,000 mark of that. And then there are a couple of other repairs that in the walkthrough of the garage. I don't advise moving. I don't advise leaving them. Like we have some foot plates at the stairs that need repair. It's a safety issue. Wasn't planned for. And I think we recognize today. Rocky got in touch with me that we have some chipped concrete that's coming at the Maritime Garage that I'm going to go and look at in the morning, but that will obviously it's at a railing, so we'll need to do some repairs for that. So I think we're looking at those as well, but we will be cost conscious in those repairs. But but we did move some of that, and I think what I think we should do, if you go to the bottom, Rocky, or whoever has this, you'll see our efforts, I think, are pretty good, right? So, we're seeing $455,000 in a fund balance. So that's savings of what we had in excess of budget. So I think, I would propose, as we monitor this going to the close of this, that we do move that into the capital reserve and replacement, so that The capital reserve and replacement is what we had established, over time, is that, percentage of money goes to repair the larger, the repairs. We're working through the city's comptroller to understand what is the balance of that account. Because that goes to the city and then just sits in your account, right? So we'll understand what the balance of that account is, but we would propose that given the extent of concrete work that we'll need in the Yankee Doodle garage and the other facade improvements that we would look to, at the end of the year, take that that savings fund balance and apply that to the capital reserve and replacement to facilitate those repairs. Questions? Did I lose you guys? I said a lot of
That's
different
good.
stuff.
Jim, what it sounds like is, it sounds like at some point we need to have some, like a little more in-depth, like planning conversation.
So yeah, which I think we're gonna get when we get the conditions assessment back. So Desmond, we contracted with Desmond to do a conditions assessment. We got a proportional amount of it looking at the exterior of the Yankee Doodle garage, but included in that is for them to give you we plan to have them give you a presentation of what the conditions assessments found in each of our facilities and what their recommendations are for prioritization of what we should repair first, right? I think we're wrapping up near to the end. I don't know if we'll be ready for next month, but certainly the month after that, I would anticipate that we'll be having Desmond do a presentation of what they found in the conditions assessment.
Okay, all right, good.
All right.
Good.
So moving on to analysis, the revenues are still a little below pre-COVID levels, expenses, and on the revenue side, really still recovering from monthly and transient revenue overall. And on the expense side, we are significantly below pre-COVID levels.
Are we at a point where we can stop comparing it to pre-COVID and
Yeah,
just look at where we are?
in one of the later slides where it's starting to look like spaghetti because we have so many years in the budget, I was going to ask or suggest that for this fiscal year, that I take a few years off and we go back to putting COVID behind us and just comparing it to the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think 3 years is plenty.
Yeah, but that's what we.
Eric?
Does that put us out of the tailspin that COVID put us in? If we're reporting on post-COVID time that's beyond the severe dips we had, then yes.
Yeah, I think it's probably an appropriate time to make that change. We're well beyond COVID, and I think the comparisons to it now are we're getting so close, and in some areas we're actually surpassing COVID levels. So
Yeah, if we're getting up to at or close to pre-COVID performance, then I don't see the need to keep referencing COVID.
Okay, and that's good news in terms of the size of the report. And we're going to move on to kind of system wide activity that again, compared to pre-COVID, we're close to those levels. And on the revenue side, it's still a little bit more under pre-COVID levels, but it's still following a seasonal trends, and I guess that's still good. So yeah, when you see these line graphs, it's starting to look very confusing. So what I think we'll do is when we get into fiscal year 24, we'll just go back to 22. But if you want to see 21, we'll include that in there too. We'll take your direction on that. I'll see how clear the graphs look.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then permits are still, consistent. They're still below where we were, but they're pretty consistent from the moment. On-street parking, that has been one area where we're actually seeing.
Staffy, just one issue on the permits. I did ask the team to work with the marketing group to come up with a poster that we could put in the frames at station, really advertising permits. The traffic volumes that we're seeing on the highways, May has increased, a dramatic increase in rush hour times. That's been pretty consistent. I think we're still seeing, a little reduction in a Friday AM, but working with my folks at Condot, we're seeing some numbers back. So it looks like a lot of people were put back to work in May, right? So I think we want to make sure that people understand permits are available. So we're going to go for some effort to get them back on track. But I was over at the garage yesterday, and those I think it was only the top floor that had the that no one was parking on, which is the first it's been a long time since I saw that, so it's looking better.
Yep.
Sorry, Snuffy.
So yeah, no, I think there's probably some pretty good marketing plays we can talk about, especially when we get to the point where new equipment's in with some better features too. So all right, going back to on street. So yes, that is kind of a bright spot of activity. At the last meeting, Peter had asked about doing some comparisons between kind of Sono and Wall Street. So I don't have it in here because I think the only thing we could start doing is trying to track it going forward, because we really don't have that historical comparison. It's going to take us some time to put together, but if it helps to kind of pique your interest on the on-street comparison of demands, Sono district represented about 58% of on-street transactions, compared to about 29% in the Wall Street district. The difference being really the West Ave corridor, about 13% of demands. So if it's that kind of a high level, Peter, that you were hoping to see, we can tailor something custom around a custom report somewhere around that. If you want to see something different, just let us know and we'll put something together.
No, I don't think I need anything, more custom than what you were just giving me.
Okay, so we'll go high level. That works. And then on the enforcement side, there was a downtick in issuance and revenue from last month, and citation revenue as a percentage of total system revenue has dropped a little bit, a little over 19%. And the collection effort, you can see, is still kind of strong through April, over 105,000. And then moving on to the now we have the JUD 1, 2, and 3 reports. So the JUD 1 report, the original, it shows a downtick in the ratio of tickets to demand. You can see, ticket issuance was down a little from last month, and demands were down, but the ratio still dropped as well.
So, Stati, if I'm understanding this correctly, tickets versus demand. So demand means of all tickets, of all parking activity, it's the percentage of tickets compared to all parking activity, right?
And the activity, not monthly parking.
So what percentage related to activity is getting a ticket?
Yeah, so what this means is that 2.53 tickets are issued for every 100 transient transactions that take place in the system.
Okay, so in total, what does that mean? What's the ratio or the percentage of total activity that results in a ticket?
Yeah, so it's 2.5%. So we see in the bottom, that bottom chart, April fiscal year 2023 says 2.53%. Can you highlight that?
So, and that number's been consistent since we've been spending time on this, right?
Well, it's fluctuated, I mean, yeah, it's fluctuated. I mean, you can see the graphs. It's kind of all over the place from where we were, but I think the high level takeaway is that it's still, only 2.5 tickets for every 100 transactions. So it's not significant on maybe an absolute value, but it's just another data point to try to compare things.
Eric,
so
if I
yes.
could interrupt for a minute. If you
Sure.
look at that bottom graph, if you look at fiscal year 2019, all the way to the right, the ticket ratio, we were giving out 1.5 tickets for every 100 parking transactions. In fiscal year 20, it was 1.16 tickets. So it's a percentage point higher this year, and last year was even higher. Last year was 2.92%. So we're running higher than our historical average, which has, it concerns me. I don't know why, but.
Can I just ask a little question here? If I were to understand before that the way people are paying is becoming more like on an app, which reminds you of when your time is up. But this is kind of showing the opposite from what the graph says or what you were saying, which in other words, if people used to pay with cash, say, and they'd put $2 in the machine and get, whatever amount of time, then you kind of forget about it. Maybe you're enjoying a meal or something like that, and then you forgot about the time, and then you get a ticket, and say that happened a couple of years, 2-3 years ago, which is kind of showing what you were saying in, say, 2020 on that green line at like 1%.
Yeah.
But if the trend is to do more app on the phone, and that kind of reminds you, you've got 10 minutes before you get a ticket, or you could even, renew your paying on the app. They seem to go in different directions to me, if I'm understanding this correctly, or maybe I'm not understanding it correctly.
Peter, that's a really good point. You'd think with pay by cell increasing, our ticketing ratio would be going down. And I'm not saying that's the cause of it by any means, but you would think that would drive it down because it's easier, people get reminders. But again, you go back to 2019, 2020, we're at 1.16. Now we're at 2.45. Our average ticket ratio is up, and it's been running that way most of the fiscal year to date.
All right, but I think if I could chime in, I think there's a couple different things. Like we can send them a reminder, but we don't know if they're going to upgrade up a ticket, right? I think the issue that became public was somebody got a reminder and they didn't use the reminder and they got a ticket, right? So even with a reminder doesn't indicate that the person is actually going to take that action. I think also I wasn't here back in the time, but I could tell you that Uber Eats and that has increased the amount of usage, and we have a lot of issues with how drivers park, where they park. They don't go and pay. They just they're running in and out. And in many instances, they're getting it. We hear a lot from the Uber Eats. Uber Eats wasn't a popular thing 3 years ago. So to compare, it to that, I don't know is a fair comparison. But I think in total, when you're like at 3% of the parking tickets, it's not a big number.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm headed.
Yeah.
Maybe we could set a threshold if if the percentage grew to 5%, maybe we spend all this time on this. But, to me, for a 2% or 2.4%, it just feels like we're managing at such a micro level that, that I don't know. It just takes up time in our meetings, and I just don't know. Since the percentages are so low, it would indicate to me that we're doing a good job. That they're so low, but I don't know. It just, for me, whenever we start managing something that is so minor, I don't know that we need to spend as much time as we do on it.
Okay, I mean, if we can get the report, we don't have to talk about it as long as it's there and.
Yeah, and maybe let's set a threshold if it grows to 5% or 4%. If there's a significant jump, maybe that's when we talk about it.
I'm interested in the Wall Street area. 3 months ago, you changed the signage, and the signage is different than the rest of the city. And we don't have to get into it here, but through this type of reporting, we could see whether that new signage is making a difference. Right now, Wall Street on the next page over is just lumped into one area. And it has, it's on the high side. It's 3.6 tickets per 100 transactions. I don't know what streets are causing that, but if we had more breakdown for the Wall Street, I think we could figure it out. So, but
Yeah.
I'll take that up outside the meeting with Staffy and Rocky and Jim. So.
Yeah, I'm not saying we get rid of it like right now, but I'm just asking everybody to think about it.
Yeah, okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll offer just one other thought for the group, because as we look at this too, there's certainly several factors, not scientific, that can account for some of this change. And when you think about, pre-COVID, those levels when we were at 1.5, 1.16 that Kim Judd was talking about, and you compare it to now, yes, it's counterintuitive that we do have, the idea is to get people to pay more at the meter and have fewer violations. And so the easier we make it, you would think that we would have fewer violations. But the one thing that we haven't really talked about, or maybe a few times a while ago, the major difference too, that I believe is a contributing factor, is that we did kind of change the structure and the staffing levels when it came to enforcement. So, I think we had tried to reduce the schedules or make them more efficient. But what I think is kind of inadvertently happened is when people don't see an enforcement officer and they don't perceive that there's consistent and reasonable enforcement, they will start to take more chances and not pay. Whereas before, when we had a little more robust enforcement staff that were out there, when people saw it and they see that they're always around, it shouldn't be necessarily seen as a negative. It should be seen as, all right, they're out enforcing, I'm going to make sure I pay. And then what we did with that staff was change their role into this ambassadorial function, where we would have outreach to the merchants on the street, and we were able to really collaborate with them and be able to, walk the streets and walk into stores and say, hey, I know I'm here, I'll be back, in 10 minutes, I'll be on the other side of the street or something like that. So they have the opportunity to tell their customers, like, hey, if you're parked out there, you might want to make sure, that you're paid up or something like that. So we lost a little bit of that, and of course, because of budget constraints during COVID. But hopefully, as we come out of this, if that's something that would be reconsidered, that may help change some of this as well. So food for thought.
So you're saying because of reduced staffing, we're getting more ticketing in a nutshell?
And that maybe
could be okay.
One factor that contributes to it, because people generally, when they don't think there's enforcement or don't see it, they will tend to take more chances. So maybe there's a creative way that we could do that, and and have maybe a softer side to enforcement that includes some ambassadorial roles that would kind of be in line with, like a business-friendly environment.
Okay,
Well, so, all right, so Kathy, so that statement right there says that we're not in line with a business-friendly environment.
as much as we used to be.
But we don't need to turn it into a philosophical conversation, but parking is parking. And it shouldn't be news to anybody that parking is parking. It feels like we find ways to apologize for enforcement. And I think that's hurting us in the long run. So we don't need to go too deep into that, but I just feel like, the more we apologize for it, the harder it's going to be for anybody to feel good about it.
I get you. I mean, I'm not trying to apologize. I'm suggesting that maybe if we have if we increase the enforcement levels or just having people on the street more, it may give people more impetus to pay instead of take that chance.
Okay. I mean, there are other large parking facilities in the city that are private, and I don't think they coddle the people that park there. I think you park. I mean, that's just the simple equation.
I don't think we're coddling them. So anyway, look, why don't we move on from this, okay?
Okay. So the report that we did is basically the second judge report was really per street. So we started doing this every month, which we can continue to do. And this shows the comparison over the last several years of just expired meter violations and how that compares street by street.
Eric, I just want to point something out here. If you look at this report, 2023 South Norwalk Railroad Lot, 5.4 tickets per 100. It's the highest number on this chart, right?
So if you earn a ticket,
Yeah, let me finish.
you
please.
receive it.
Yeah, let me finish, please. Okay, that number has been high like that for a couple of months. So I live in South Norwalk. I drove by the lot. There are no signs in the parking lot that indicate that it's paid parking. Now, there used to be, but they're not there right now. I don't know why they're not there, but they're not there. And that tells me that's probably the driver of the high ticketing. So we need to get the signs back up. I'm not trying to coddle anybody. I want people to comply and pay. But if there's no signs in a parking lot where they're supposed to pay, how are people going to know? So that's the value of this report. You may think it's too much information, but to me, this is helpful.
That's a good point. And maybe the threshold is 5%.
Yeah.
Maybe we talk about situations 5% or greater. Something. When we focus on 1.2 or 1.4% out of the total activity, it just seems just overly managed.
Okay.
So maybe there's a threshold, is a thought.
And we'll look at that signage too, because if there isn't enough and they're not visible, then
I think maybe James was doing something with the signage and the left, but I haven't been by there in 2 weeks, but 2 weeks ago, there was no signage there.
I'm over there tomorrow, Judd. I'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
okay. And then
Okay,
So Judd, actually too, on this, not to harp on it, Liberty Square lot, 0.6%.
yeah,
It went from completely unmanaged
yep.
to this level of management. So,
They're doing a great job there.
it's unbelievable. It's awesome. And
Yeah.
so, but maybe it's a threshold. Just everybody just think about it. It just seems like a lot of information.
Okay.
okay, and
I
then
like a lot of information. That's how I am. That's how I run I run a small construction business. I run it by the numbers. If the numbers aren't right, I raise my prices. So you know,
That's good.
yep. Okay,
All right, so we'll finish on a positive note, which is the pay by cell, which is always nice to end on. Because that has been a shining, bright shining star in this operation. And probably the unintended consequence of a pandemic, where we're getting a lot more people to pay through the cell phone. So you can see where the numbers are, and we have no reason to believe that it won't get better. And that's all that I have to report, unless there's some more questions. Oh, Rocky, was there anything that you need to add?
No, nothing. Judd, we got the report that you asked for the street by street, but you know, I can just show it.
no, you don't, I'll talk to you off, oh, okay,
This is it, and if you look at it, the overall ticket issuance is consistent even in the previous slide.
yeah,
If you look at it, it is just, you know, consistent 2.5% overall.
okay,
And this report is actually comparing it to actual demand. The previous report is actually comparing it to, you know, total demand versus total tickets, the no parking tickets, and all those are not factored into the demand data. So that, you know, this is a little bit of misleading information. But if you look at this one, this actually compares it to the actual demand of the facilities.
okay,
And if you look at it, it's 2.5% overall this year. So
yeah.
consistent with, you know, 18, 19 numbers, a little less, you know, 19, 20 and 2021 and, you know, year.
Can you send me that other report? Can you, that
Yep.
one?
Yep,
Okay.
send it to you. I just wanted, you know, this was a draft, street by street. I know you asked for a Wall Street area. It's broken down by each street.
That's great,
This is looking at it from January through April.
okay,
Keep it on there. Basically, it is the same kind of formula. The first, that percentage on the third page is basically the ratio of the numbers on the second and first pages.
all right, beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all we've got for you today.
Did you stop sharing? I'll pull up the agenda again.
Oh, thank you, Seth. So we're number 5 now, right?
Yeah. So, so I'll run through these relatively quickly. We talked about the LAS extension contract because, you know, with James leaving, not having the resources to put that together. We went through the whole thing, but in researching this, we never actually voted on it. So I just need you to vote so I can, we can move it forward, and I apologize. I missed this because I went through all the meeting notes and apparently we just didn't do the vote. So it would have been a good thing anyway, because we would have, you know, we when we married the park, the beach parking, we didn't marry it to the same time frame. So this will actually put both of the contracts working simultaneously so that we could, you know, then incorporate them, you know, better later. So what we're looking for is, you know, we're going to marry to the parks beach parking contract that they have, and run the last contract extended through October 15th, 2024.
So we'll take a motion on, or is there any discussion? So then can we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. A second?
Second,
Thank you, Chad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you, and I apologize for missing that earlier. So,
no problem. Thank
and so we did
Vanessa.
5B with Vanessa out of order. To 5C, we touched on so do I have it? Wait a minute. So my apologies. So we don't have them yet. And so this is going to be where I talked to you about it earlier. Apparently I was very tired when I did these things. So where I talked about you earlier, we're going to have Desmond come here for to review the conditions assessment. And in particular, we talked about the Yankee Doodle Garage, which is, you know, what I want to get on there. We'll look at those improvements to go forward, but we will have to get costs associated with that. But we have them nearing the end of the conditions assessment now, so we will have them, if not for the next meeting. It was a discuss so that we had it on this one, so that we did discuss and approve for the next one. So it was I just put it a little bit out of sequence. My apologies again. But next week will be discussed. The next one will hopefully be discussed. I think we'll be ready for them. We're going to get the conditions assessment for us to review the expenses. So that was just an add-on to get it for next month. And then if I were to continue on to the old business, the discussion of free 15-minute option. So that is still just, we got the parts in, right, Staffy, or Rocky?
Yes, Jim, we did get up the upgrade for the Wall Street area.
Yeah.
And we started installing yesterday, but there was a programming glitch. So the vendor is working to fix that as we speak.
Okay, so that, it's that was just the supply chain issues again, that, so we got all the new stations in, and then in order for the system to operate, we need to upgrade the screens to the larger screens for the Wall Street area. We had hoped that they would be in at this point to do it, but I will have to communicate via, I think at this point, we know the equipment's in, we just have to make the changes. We can do an event, a press event about the free 15-minute option soon. I think we'll just have to communicate via email on what that is. I want to have all of the screens in and operating fully before we turn it on. So I don't want to turn something on and have a new screen. So for that, we'll have to, we thought we'd make it in for this meeting, but we will have to communicate via email on the rest.
Okay.
That is also the status of the pay station delivery. You heard Rocky just talk about. They're here. They are working on them, and this is the end of it. Took a little while to get here. I'm very happy that they're there. We've really cut this pretty close with the communications ending in 2G and 3G. So I don't want to be in this situation again. And then lastly, the coffee shop lease, I talked to you about it earlier. We have to repair that leak, but the negotiations have made its way through. You guys, we already have that, so it's just it'll be that final walk through that we do that will get her in there, but we're very anxious to get that space back open. I think in tune with that, Rocky, do you have a photo of the vending machines? Can we pull that up? So the vending machine areas were fixed and oh, I'm sorry, Chad.
Yeah, just on the leases. So is Lobster Craft fully paid up now?
So Lobster Craft is they are current. They still owe so now they owe for June, but they still have not paid the security deposit. So we have sent a reminder notification out for the security deposit.
Okay, but it's moving in the right direction.
It's moving in the right direction.
Good.
Everybody is paid up to date.
Good.
So you'll recall that we built a home for the vending machines so that we could make it look like they have a place. And so that they finished. We moved the vending machines in there. I'll stop sharing so that maybe Rocky could throw a photo up. Had asked him to go take a picture. I did stop over the train stations yesterday, and they look intentional, and which I think is really great. And I think we also are engaging Metro North on to get a new ticket station into the Sono train station so that that could be off the platform and into, now that we have a home for them, a ticket station inside we have place for, which I think would be a much better place to buy a ticket rather than outside in the cold or the rain or whatever, right? You know, so and so
Yeah.
This is the only picture that downloaded on my one through the file that I
Okay.
created. So,
all right.
yeah, this is the one by eastbound side.
Yeah, so this is the eastbound side of the train station. We have one on for, you know, for the other side, but you know, we
Yeah.
have new vending machines. They're light, they're clean, you know, they look intentional, they have a place, they're banked together, they're not just randomly haphazardly all over the train station. So I think we'll see some good stuff from there. The train station is looking better, I think. So we're trying to do everything we can do to welcome people back in a much more positive and friendly way.
That's great. Yeah, it looks terrific.
And we did get some good feedback from the train station customers, especially the ones that come early in the morning. So that we did get a positive feedback with these machines.
Excellent.
So we will keep that and we'll see what, you know, we'll watch the revenue and see what it does if people are responding better. And Matt, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I have one point of information and one comment.
Sure. Yeah.
So the first is, you know, we just finished discussing about the train station, and we see, you know, obviously we're doing everything we can to increase our monthly and transient revenue at the railroad stations. And I was made to understand earlier in this week that the governor is recommending a reduction in service on the New Haven line, a fairly significant reduction in service. And I think we should further explore in the future how we intend to respond and accept that as an authority, given where we are and all of our consideration to finances. That's my comment. And then just as a point of information, Jim, I'm wondering if I understood that it was taken to executive session, but last night the Common Council took to consideration an additional lot next to the library on Mott. And so I'm wondering if if you were able to discern any kind of information about, you know, what the city's consideration for potentially acquiring the lot and what that would mean for the parking authority.
So I think it was switching from one leaser to another leaser, just do adjacent lot. It's a non-paid lot today. It'd be a non-paid lot, you know, in the future. So I don't think it has from a parking authority's perspective. I don't think it has no impact. It's 30 spaces for 30 spaces, just you know, one location to the next.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. But I also think, you know, truthfully, you know, when we look at the Wall Street design, you know, we're trying to very much negotiate with the post office to get a walkthrough to the garage. I think that could be another great source of just getting, you know, access to people to the library and better access to people for all of the commerce that's occurring through the corridor.
Have they responded?
We've escalated it up through Bloomingdale's offices. We had one positive response from. We haven't finalized it yet. I'm hopeful, but it's so yes and no. I think.
Okay.
Matt, I did not see that recommendation coming from the governor's office. If you could forward what you saw, I think that I will share with the administration. I do think from a, you know, maybe a parking authority perspective, we should write a letter that, you know, I don't know that even from a city perspective, that's you know, like we want to, like we're seeing now in May a significant increase in volumes on the road. Like my commute is much different in May, and it has been consistently much different in May, right? So we're at a point in time where people are returning to work. It doesn't seem like this is the correct issue. And also like, we have facilities that are adjacent to the train station that they're supported. So,
I'll be glad to share it with all.
all right, I can take a look and I will communicate with you guys.
Jim,
Yes.
you might also, I believe Travis Sims.
Yep.
State rep here, right from South Norwalk, is chair of the Transportation Committee at the state level,
Okay,
I think.
I'll reach out. Yeah, I don't think he's chair, but I'll reach out to him because Roland Lamar is chair of transportation.
Oh, okay. All right. You would know better than me, but I think he's involved with it somehow.
Okay,
so.
it's background transportation, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that, let me just bring it up to one more
I
time.
think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yep, that was it.
So if there's no further discussion on anything, we could have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
I'd make,
motion.
I'll second.
Great, thank you, Judd and Peter. Then, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, excellent. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
and, apologize for the long agenda tonight, but thank you very
No,
much.
it's good. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, good night.